Latino History Month continues with a new speaker.
And students got to look at study abroad opportunities. Stay tuned, Troy TrojanVision News starts now.
From the High Definition Production Center of Troy University's Broadcast and Digital Network at Troy, Alabama's International University, this is Troy TrojanVision News.
Hello and welcome to Troy TrojanVision News for September 23rd, 2015. I'm Casey Freeman.
And I'm Haley Greathouse. Thank you for joining us this evening. Next week, the Troy Trojans will play Sun Belt Conference rival South Alabama on the football field. But before the game, the Student Government Association is using the week to heat up the rivalry between the two schools. Alex Robertson has that and more from this week's SGA meeting.
Troy University's Student Government Association is making some big plans for next week as the Trojans take on in-state rival South Alabama.
We're also talking about Rivalry Week, which is this new tradition that we have come up with against South Alabama. So from now on, hopefully, our expectation is that every time we play South Alabama, the week preceding the game will be a packed week full of fun events for our students to kind of enhance student pride in our university and to kind of support the football team as they go and fight the Jaguars.
SGA has a packed schedule of events planned for the newly created Rival Week.
With Rivalry Week, there's multiple different things coming up. We have the soccer game versus South Alabama. That is on September 25th. We also, on September 28th, we have our South Alabama Car Bash. That is going to be from 10 to 12. We also have our official Rivalry Week kickoff at 12 p.m. Then we also have our pep rally at 5 p.m. on that day. And then on Saturday, we have a tug of war with Troy students versus all South Alabama students.
Alex Robertson, Troy TrojanVision News.
The Rivalry Week Car Bash will be Monday from 10 to noon on the Social Quad.
Troy University's library is using this month to educate students about Latino American history, and today a guest speaker talked about some topics one might not have expected to hear in the library. Ryan Renfro has more.
Prostitution and Cuba were the main topics discussed in the Troy Library's efforts to educate Troy students on the Latino culture. The idea came after the Troy Library received a grant from the American Library Association.
203 libraries got grants of $3,000 each to conduct programming relating to Latino American history. And so the name of the grant is Latino Americans 500 Years of History, and we've been having lectures and films on all three of the campuses, Montgomery, Troy, and Dothan, where we have libraries.
The hope always is that it will encourage students when they see something about Cuba in the news, that they'll read it, that they'll engage with one another. I hope also students will think about traveling to Cuba and meeting the people themselves in a personal way. So that would be wonderful if the talk today inspires any of that.
Dr. Tiffany Sipiel's plans for students go far beyond just this room. She says she hopes to answer questions students may have about the relationship between the United States and Cuba, with hopes of one day strengthening the ties between the two countries.
Students have so many questions about Cuba right now in light of the changes that are occurring between the United States and Cuba, and so I hoped that this talk, maybe even more than centering on or provoking conversation about prostitution, would help us understand Cuba. Learning the language, learning about the culture, learning about the history, asking the hard questions about the role that we as individual citizens can play in forging relations, not just with Cuba, but with Latinos in our own culture. That's the real drive here in this. And if students have learned something about prostitution in Cuba, great. But if it inspires them to ask questions about the history of Latin America more generally, then I'm happy.
One Troy student shares his thoughts on the program and in what ways he felt it was speaking specifically to him.
I think specifically whenever they're tied in with majors of students like myself, or majors and minors being Spanish minors, is really interesting and helps me understand why I'm a Spanish minor, but just more about the culture, and facilitates informal learning. So I thought it was really good.
Ryan Renfro, Troy TrojanVision News.
The next event will be a showing of the last part of a documentary on Latino history Tuesday at 4 p.m. in Patterson Hall, room 105.
So Casey, Troy is known as Alabama's international university, but not only do we bring international students to Troy, we send Troy students abroad. Argentina, France, Japan, these are just some of the options.
That's right, and Sarah Singletary has the story.
On Wednesday, Troy Abroad students and faculty provided information and shared personal accounts about studying abroad. Students interested in study abroad programs got the opportunity to ask questions and figure out how to continue studying their major overseas in a unique way.
I want to study abroad because I think it provides a unique opportunity as a young adult and a learning experience of seeing how other countries are educated and how their business world works. For me specifically, I want to see how different countries and their businesses work, and how, since we are a global marketplace, how as a United States citizen I can be involved in that bigger global market.
From Barcelona, Spain, all the way to Cape Town, South Africa, every study abroad trip offers a unique opportunity for students willing to travel outside their comfort zone.
Traditionally, our most popular destination has been Cape Town, South Africa, where we offer leadership learning and service courses. The city is beautiful, has great views of the southern tip of Africa, but it's also got great history. You can go visit where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for over 20 years.
Common reasons for not studying abroad are language barriers and academic concerns. Troy Abroad Director Maria Frigge attempts to ease students' concerns by working with advisors at home and at schools overseas.
And we also work very closely with their advisor and the school they want to go to make sure that the classes they're going to take are actually going towards their major. And also what we make sure is that the classes are in English. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to speak the language of the country you're going to.
Study abroad opportunities are offered by the year, semester, and over the summer. Sarah Singletary, Troy, TrojanVision News.
For more information on study abroad opportunities, contact Maria Frigge in the Troy Abroad office.
Now taking a look at news from around the state. Authorities say an Alabama state trooper was hospitalized after an early morning vehicle crash on Interstate 59. The wreck happened about 2 o'clock this morning in a construction area along the interstate in the Trussville area.
City leaders in Mobile are announcing details of a deal to bring regular cruise ship visits to Alabama's port city for the first time in 4 years. City officials and Carnival Cruise Line's executives are making the announcement today at the Alabama Cruise Terminal in Mobile.
Planned Parenthood has asked a federal judge to prevent Governor Robert Bentley's administration from ending Medicaid payments to the organization's Alabama clinics. A lawyer for Planned Parenthood Southeast told a federal judge yesterday that Republican governor broke Medicaid law by ending the funding.
Still to come on Troy TrojanVision News, the Trojans soccer team kicks off rivalry week on Friday. William McCarthy tells us more with sports.
Plus, the Pope is visiting the United States for the first time. We'll have that story and more coming up.
After a meeting at the White House, Pope Francis hits the streets in his Pope Mobile, then addresses American bishops. I'm Craig Boswell in Washington, where thousands more wait on Pope Francis here at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If you store your guns properly, I'll feel safer when I'm playing outside.
Safer when walking home.
I won't have to tell so many family members. I'm sorry.
I won't hear as many scary stories.
And I won't have to tell my kids. This isn't a drill.
Please.
Please, do it for us.
Your family, friends, and neighbors are all counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always, lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
Now, the latest in Trojan sports on Troy TrojanVision News.
The Troy football team took on the Wisconsin Badgers Saturday in a 28-3 loss. Troy had a quality chance to take the lead right before the half with a first down on the Wisconsin 30-yard line. However, an offensive pass interference call put the Trojans 15 yards behind the sticks, and they just couldn't recover. Khadijah Tolbert has more from Troy's practice.
Defensive coordinator Vic Koenig said the defense did not take advantage of opportunities and left points on the field.
This last weekend we left a lot of potential plays on the field. And I think in my perspective, we probably should have scored 3 times on defense if we'd executed exactly right and been prepared when the ball was snapped and do exactly as they'd been shown to do. We had opportunities to get some takeaways that we didn't do. So we let victory slip through our fingers, and this is something that we got to learn how to not do again.
Wide receiver Jarvis Bentley said that there was no real difference between Wisconsin and NC State's defense despite the loss, and that he thinks the offense performed well aside from a few turnovers.
They're pretty much the same. They play good coverages. They got a good D-line. Secondary is great. We just got to execute. We perform real good, first downs and third downs, but, turnovers really killed us. We turned the ball over, We kind of hurt ourselves. We had the game, but, we played a good Wisconsin team. They beat us.
Jamal Kennedy, Troy, TrojanVision Sports.
The Trojans have the week off, but are preparing for the first Sun Belt Conference game next week against rival South Alabama in Veterans Memorial Stadium. Coming from behind against Belmont and beating Tennessee Tech, the Trojans soccer team found ways to win last weekend in Tennessee. The Trojans are preparing for Sun Belt Conference play, which starts on Friday against in-state rival South Alabama. Head coach Jason Hamilton says the team needs to have a winning mentality heading into conference play.
It's always good to get wins. 7-2 record. It's I've talked about in the past, and I'll always talk about winning's contagious. So teaching teams how to win, and then having that mentality how to win games. Now when we get into conference, which every game should be close and should be a battle, that they're gonna understand how to finish games off. And we scored against Tennessee Tech. We scored in the last 3 minutes of the first half, the last 5 minutes of the second half. Against Belmont, we scored in the last 6 minutes of the first half. So, those are crucial times in the game, and our ladies did a great job this weekend, finishing off those halves. And when teams start to mentally get fatigued, to, make sure we're staying sharp and take advantage of those opportunities.
Troy begins conference play this Friday against in-state rival South Alabama at 7 p.m. at the Troy Soccer Complex to kick off rivalry week across the Troy campus. Troy volleyball has had its ups and downs this season. The Trojans began conference play last weekend and dropped their first 2 Sun Belt games to add to a 7-game losing streak. The Trojans are back on the road this week, where they have not had that much success this season, and head coach Sonny Kirkpatrick says winning on the road is important to succeed in conference play.
It is. We haven't played well on the road all year. As a matter of fact, we're 0-4 on the road. If we want to get to the conference tournament and represent Troy in it, then we've got to figure out a way to get a win on the road and outside of our own building. And that just comes with a mindset and with a focus, and that's what we've been working on with our team.
Heading to Arkansas this weekend, where they play Little Rock on Friday and Arkansas State on Saturday.